All right, let's bring in our pal Craig Button, TSN's Director of Scouting. What do you make of Kevin Cheveldayoff's situation right now, knowing that there is, I think, a team need and desire to move on from Blake Wheeler and potentially Mark Scheifele, and now almost being forced into move Pierre-Luc Dubois and Connor Hellebuyck?
Okay, so you're now dealing with reality, right? And, Kevin last year at this time, he said, I believe in this group. And now, after a number of years, it's really more difficult to believe in the group. And then you have players that don't believe in playing for Winnipeg anymore. Sometimes it's difficult to look in the mirror and to really see reality. I believe this about managers. Managers have to see their team as it is, not as they hoped that it is, or they wish that it was, or they thought it could be, as it is. So here's where Kevin finds himself right now. He finds himself with a scenario, Scheifele in the last year of his contract, Blake Wheeler, and there's no way it didn't sting Blake Wheeler when the captaincy was removed from him. And he's got 1 year left. Hellebuyck and Pierre-Luc Dubois say they don't want to sign here long-term. That's certainty for Kevin Cheveldayoff. Now he knows what he has to do. And anything less than trying to procure the best deals, whatever they may be, whether it includes all four, whether it includes three of the four, whatever it is, that's what he has to do. There is no room for trying to couch this or trying to massage it in a different way. It's very clear what the intentions are of Dubois and Hellebuyck and where the team has fallen short. And that's not all Mark Scheifele or Blake Wheeler. They still have a lot of talented players on this team. They still have a lot of good prospects in their system. But this has to change. And Kevin Cheveldayoff has to be the architect of that change. Anything short of that is not going to move the team forward. And Kevin will not be serving the Winnipeg Jets in the best manner.
One of the things that we've heard from some of the connected insiders is that the Winnipeg Jets are open for business, but they are not looking. And I mean, the word that's used is rebuild. I mean, we joke that you can have there's a dozen RE words, call it whatever you want. I mean, I don't think this team's looking to be the worst team in the league and pick first overall. And they frankly have too much talent, but it's obvious, Craig, that there are big changes needed. What do you make of the messaging from the team that this is about making the playoffs next year and being competitive? Is that more a message maybe to some of the players that are still on the team, a Josh Morrissey, a Kyle Connor, and Adam Lowry, that, while there are going to be changes, this team is not looking to take massive steps back, as difficult as that may seem if you're losing the sort of players the Jets may be?
Well, difficult as it may seem, because you're now dealing with certainties of what Connor Hellebuyck delivers, what Pierre-Luc Dubois delivers, Mark Scheifele, Blake Wheeler. And so whatever path Kevin is looking at in terms of maneuvers and moves in moving those players out, or some of them or all of them, and then trying to get players in, that's what people don't know. But you just mentioned it. Adam Lowry, Nino Niederreiter's got another year. Ehlers, Morrissey, Kyle Connor. These are all really good players. These are and they're not the only good players. There's lots of good players on this team. So I think that great to have messaging, right? But the Winnipeg fan base knows. And they'll be patient and saying, "We'll wait," and they'll say, "Show us. We're not going to just take your word for it." And the Winnipeg fan base is a passionate hockey and Jets fan base. They know their stuff. They know what's going on. So now, this is why I say Kevin Cheveldayoff cannot couch this. You are not doing that. You've seen it. We've all seen it where the building isn't full anymore. It's not full because fans are not passionate about the Jets. They just don't see a value right now in investing time and money in this group. I believe that will turn itself around once the team shows that it can, and maybe changes in that. But when we talk about rebuild, reset, whatever you want to do, maybe the first path for Kevin Cheveldayoff is, hey, what kind of prospects can I get? What kind of draft picks can I get? Are there players I could get, a la what Calgary did with Huberdeau and Weegar? What is the potential for that? But you might have to work in two phases. You might have to do the first phase and then look, okay, now that we've done this, what's the second phase of that? And, like I'll use an example. It's like a knee replacement. You have to take out the old knee before you can put in the new knee. And then you move on from there, and then you function better. And I think that's where the Jets find themselves. So maybe you trade for prospects and draft picks, and then you take those prospects and draft picks and consider what you can do to make your team competitive and challenging for a playoff spot this year.
Craig, let's start with Pierre-Luc Dubois. We knew Montreal was a rumored destination for him, but it does seem like the Paterson open to more teams, as well as the willingness to do a sign and trade, which I'd imagine is a good thing for the Winnipeg Jets. The team we're hearing a lot about right now is the Los Angeles Kings. If you're Kevin Cheveldayoff and the Kings are aggressively looking to acquire Pierre-Luc Dubois, where do you start with an ask from Los Angeles?
Well, so let me just, I want to go back. Remember last year, Matthew Tkachuk was going to St. Louis? Now, the last time I looked, Florida isn't in St. Louis. So I think Pat Brisson understands. I mean, so because of his French-Canadian background, Montreal. Well, okay, great, I get it. But there's lots of places that Pierre-Luc Dubois, I'm sure, would entertain, and there's lots of places that NHL teams, places that should entertain Pierre-Luc Dubois. So where am I going to start? Well, I'm going to start right with Quinton Byfield. And, to me, that is a place, if you're getting Pierre-Luc Dubois and you're the LA Kings, what are you willing to sign? And it's got to be some quality. Now, Quinton Byfield, I think, has made some real significant steps forward in his career, but that's where it would start. It wouldn't end there. That's where it would start, though. Very clearly, that's where it's got to start. And then you try to understand, okay, are there other prospects or players that might be closer to playing that can help us or not? But when you're talking about a player that's going to be 25 on June 24th and has the impact that Pierre-Luc Dubois has, you have to ensure that you're asking. I'll give you an example. In 1995, we drafted Jarome Iginla. We knew Jarome Iginla was going to be we thought he'd be a really good player. He ended up being far better than we ever projected. But when Joe Nieuwendyk came on the market, we didn't know that was going to happen. But when Al Coates said, it's Jarome Iginla, listen, we were uneasy, but at the end of it, we realized to get Joe Nieuwendyk, that was the price. Team wants Pierre-Luc Dubois, you better be ready to hear the price. We're going to go back to being bold. What do you want to do? You want to be bold or not? Or do you want to sit on the sidelines? Because the second part of that story is, I can't begin to tell you how many teams were so bold to tell us after the fact that they offered a better player than Jarome Iginla. They couldn't believe that the Calgary Flames only got Jarome Iginla for Joe Nieuwendyk.
Only Jarome Iginla.
I know. And I remember Les Jackson. We were in Boston at the World Junior, and somebody was one of the team, and he just basically told the team, he said, your player isn't even close to Jarome Iginla. And he says, if you think you are, and that's what you were offering, that's why you didn't get Joe Nieuwendyk.
Craig Button, TSN's Director of Scouting, with this here on Winnipeg Sports Talk. I think there's a lot of people that are intrigued about the pedigree of Byfield, the second overall pick, but haven't seen him a lot. He hasn't really popped yet at the NHL level. Where is Quinton Byfield at, and what's the ceiling? Because I think for the Winnipeg Jets, they have to be looking at a younger player under team control and a player that has the potential, Craig, to eventually replace one of these top two centers that will be probably out the door in the next couple months.
See, what I love what you just said, top two centers. I think the first thing here is understanding what Quinton is. Quinton's only going to turn 21 years of age, I believe, in August. So he's a young player. He's a very young player. And that being said, now you go and you consider, okay, is he a second line center? Second line centers are really, really good. I've seen real progression in Quinton Byfield. And, maybe people expected it to be sooner, but Quinton has always been a player that's moved along in a path. And, the qualities he brings, he's a smart player. And I think once he gets to an age where he's a little bit more mature physically, mentally, I think that's where you're going to see somebody shine and move forward. I look at a couple of players. Nathan McKinnon was Rookie of the Year as an 18-year-old. It wasn't until his fifth year that he popped. There was a lot of questions about Nathan MacKinnon. He signed the big contract coming out of his entry. Oh my God, can you believe you're giving Nathan MacKinnon that? He's he's a superstar. He's one of the best players in the whole world. The other player that comes to mind is Marcus Naslund. Marcus Naslund was in Pittsburgh, moving along. Took him a little bit of time, but boy, once he came along, he became a frontline player. I think Quinton, do I think he's Nathan MacKinnon? No. But I think the key word there, the key aspect of this, be patient. I think there's a lot there with Quinton. Be realistic in what that is. I think a second line center is what he can be, a really good one. But I think I've seen progression in Quinton, but that's what it's got to. That's the type of player that I think you talk about: controlled, young, size, a skill level that I think would benefit any team. But certainly, if the Jets are looking in that regard, that would be a guy that would be high on my list.
Craig, Connor Hellebuyck has been the backbone of this franchise for the last number of years, and it seems inevitable that he will be moving on. From a general manager's perspective, when you have an asset like that can be such a difference maker for a franchise, how do you go about maximizing value for a player like that? And what do you make of the market for a player like Connor Hellebuyck right now in the National Hockey League?
So I'm going to answer the second question first. Connor Hellebuyck, and I've done this a few times, in the last 6 seasons, nobody's played more games than him. Only Andrei Vasilevsky has won more games than Connor Hellebuyck. Of goaltenders that have played 200 games or more, Connor Hellebuyck has the 4th best save percentage in the entire league. You watch him lots. They're like he is the backstopper that when your team isn't playing well, he keeps you in a game. When your team needs the performances to help you end up on the right side of the game, Connor he's unique. There are very few goaltenders like him in the league. For me, looking outside in, if a Connor Hellebuyck comes on the market, you're doing everything you can. You're moving heaven and earth to get that game changer, that difference maker. That's how I look at it from the other side. Okay, do the Islanders need him? No, they have Sorokin. Do the Rangers need him? No, they have Shesterkin. I talked about Vasilevsky. When you have a chance to improve your team in such an important position and in such a significant way with Connor Hellebuyck, you better pony up. Because again, I'm going to go back to what I said earlier. You asked me about will this change how general managers look at it? I don't think it's in their DNA, but there are general managers out there that it is in their DNA. And you want to improve your team. You want to be serious about what you say you're about, trying to compete and trying to move yourself closer to a Stanley Cup. You best be phoning Kevin Cheveldayoff about Connor Hellebuyck, and you better not be reticent about hearing what he's asking for on the other end. Listen, it's hard to maximize the value of such a quality player like Connor Hellebuyck. That's the job of Kevin. How he does it might not just be in that one move. It might have to be in different ways. But Connor Hellebuyck's a big-time player, and I think he should be a big-time person on the trade market.
Craig, Mark Scheifele's been incredibly productive over the last number of years. He's got 1 year left on a deal that by today's market, I think is very team-friendly. What do you make of the demand for Scheifele? What do you feel that how many teams will be interested in? Is there a team or two when you look at the landscape of the NHL that would make sense and a good fit for Mark Scheifele if he does move on from Winnipeg?
Well, you just nailed it. I mean, the contract is fantastic. The productivity is fantastic. And quite frankly, a change for Mark Scheifele might be really positive. We've seen that happen. I'll look just to recent examples. Ryan O'Reilly, went from Buffalo to the St. Louis Blues. He won the Cup. We know about Jack Eichel. So if you're looking for a player on a great contract, and I don't know what his demands are in terms of a long-term contract, but if you're trying to just move forward right now, right here, Mark Scheifele would be an excellent, excellent addition to your team. I don't know where, I don't know if the Winnipeg Jets have an appetite for it, but you look at the Calgary Flames. I don't know if the Calgary Flames would be interested in Mark Scheifele, and they have to look at it, but you can't tell me that a center ice of Lindholm and Scheifele isn't something that's really significant. Now, I know the Flames have to work on some cap space and whatnot, But you start to look at those areas and you start to look at teams that very well could benefit from this type of player. Mark can do those things. The Carolina Hurricanes. I mean, you're looking at a big, strong, player that can drive play in a city. And I think the Carolina Hurricanes need some size. I think they need some bulk, on the wings and in the middle of the ice. So those are just, one team for Calgary is more just about looking at that team. The Carolina Hurricanes, who are a Final Four team, who are a serious team and been really good. I think that would be a really good fit for the Carolina Hurricanes. And they very well may be able to meet Mark Scheifele's demands on a long-term contract and be comfortable doing it.
Well, and the one thing I'll say, Craig, is, for instance, if he did go to a team like Carolina, who's shown that they're willing to play things out and see how things go, you're going to get a player that I think is going to be incredibly motivated for a number of reasons to have a big year. And at the top of that list is the fact that he's probably got one more big-time NHL contract in him, and that will be signed at the latest at the end of next season.
You nailed it. Players are competitive. They're going to give their best. But you're going into that last year. You know that you're going to be a UFA. You know you're going to have suitors, and you want to put yourself in the very best position. I don't think it's about being more competitive. I think it's just about, you know that in an 82-game season, you're going to be more dialed into every single detail of the game to make sure that you maximize your play on the ice, to maximize your greatest potential off the ice in terms of a contract. And to your point, that's exactly what you get at this point in time.